Welcome to this Alaska Land mobile radio training presentation on radio programming basics for the Motorola APX series. In this video, we are going to go through the Motorola APX customer programming software, or CPS, and show a few different examples of some of the more important things to know when programming your radios. Please keep in mind that this training does not replace manufacturer-specific training for radio programming, and that you should always be aware of what changes you are making and ensure that they are correct and will work properly before applying those changes to a radio. Sometimes making mistakes in the radio programming process may cause hardware failures or other issues that may require a dealer or manufacturer to solve. Also, please keep in mind that the screenshots shown in this video have had most of their information changed. Therefore, do not use the information that is shown on this code plug for items like talk groups, ID numbers, or any other ALMR or system-specific information, as they will not work on a production radio. Let's look now at a few different items within the Motorola APX programming software. The first thing to note when programming ALMR-specific information into a radio is that you must have a system key enabled in your radio software to unlock certain fields, particularly fields that have to do with the ALMR or the trunking radio system. Once you have launched your customer programming software, which can be obtained from your radio dealer, put the hardware key, or the advanced key as the system refers to it, into the computer's USB drive. Come up here now to the menus and click on the Tools menu, and you will see over here Load Advanced Keys. If I click Load Advanced Keys, that will read the key that I have attached, and we can see now from this pop-up that we have a system key loaded. This will unlock all of the fields that are applicable to the system key. If you have fields that you are not able to change, try reloading your advanced key again. When you open up your code plug, you are going to see the radio information screen as you see here. This gives basic information about the radio, what versions of software, and what frequency bands they operate under. There are a couple different sections in the customer programming software that are important to ALMR users. Keep in mind that there is no standard programming methodology in the ALMR system. In other words, how one agency's radios are programmed may not be how other agencies' radios are programmed. This is why it's difficult sometimes to predict what a certain control or certain function will do on a radio, as each agency has the ability to find that in their own way. For the physical radio and the radio controls, this is located under the Radio Ergonomics section. If you click the triangle next to Radio Ergonomics Configuration, you're going to see a number of different menus that come up. Let me point to the Controls menu, which I will now open up, and the first one you may see is Buttons. Each button, control, switch, or knob on the radio can be programmed to do certain things. In this section, you will see a top button, a side top button, side middle, and side bottom buttons are on this particular radio. The next two columns dictate what feature is used when those buttons are pressed. There is a conventional feature and a trunking feature. When on a trunking talk group, it will follow the controls defined in the trunking feature column. When you're on a conventional channel, it will follow the conventional features. In this example, the side top button has the light activation. I have a sight display and a sight search, and a sight lock and unlock in the side bottom button. If you click the down arrow, you will see all of the different options that your radio allows. Please note, if you have a red selection, there may be a reason that you cannot allow for that particular function. For instance, the radio may not have that particular feature enabled, or there might be a configuration change that you must change somewhere else in the software in order to make that. So you can see here there's a number of different options here in the trunking features. I do want to point out to you that under the help, if you click CPS help, and this will pop up, you can get a number of different definitions of every field on the screen, and that comes up in a new window. If we click on the switches button, we're going to see the same thing here. We have two sections. Again, this one here is conventional switches, and then this one here is trunking switches. So there's concentric switches and toggle switches on this particular radio, and once again, you have different options here if you click that drop down to see what those switches will actually do. The same thing if you have menus available. On this we have different menu items that may be available. Again, conventional and trunking are defined differently, and you'll have different options that you can select as to what your menus do and what your hotkeys are. Keypad is usually not something you need to change too much. You do have, if there's accessory buttons, you can select those here attached to your radio in any of the accessories or anything else you may use. So that is radio ergonomics. The final selection here is display. You can change some options in the display if your radio happens to have one. That'll give you some different things in here like text size, different indicators and alarms, and some of those options are available. So coming out of radio ergonomics, I want to talk now about the system configuration. So I'm going to spend most of our time here talking about the trunking system. If you'll see here, you have a conventional configuration section and a trunking configuration section. Let's go into trunking configuration. And this section is three important features in here. First is trunking wide. This is some standard features just for all trunking systems that you can see on this screen. But then, if we go down to trunking system, you can see we have a system here defined called ALMR. And if we open this up and we click on the individual system that's defined, then you're going to be able to go in and see quite a bit of other information in here that you can just go ahead and change or modify if needed. The trunking system information is important because this is the information that authenticates you on the ALMR system. So I have a sample here of the ALMR system. A couple things that I'm going to point out that are going to be important to you is this unit ID field. This is the ID number that is assigned to you by the ALMR system. You must put the correct ID number in order to be authenticated, especially if you're using APX Smart Connect. Please note that in a lot of these fields, you're going to see two different fields in here. This first field is the decimal value, and then the second field is the hexadecimal value. If you change the information in this, it will update the hexadecimal value in the other field. So it's not necessary to change both of those. But as you're going through the programming software, be sure you're not accidentally changing the hexadecimal value or the decimal value with an errant keystroke, as that will cause issues for you. Also in the system definition, you have your control channels. These channels are what the radio looks for over the air in order to communicate with the ALMR system. This information is provided by ALMR, as is your unit ID and other pertinent information on this screen. If you need assistance with this and your channel definitions, please contact the ALMR help desk. Note that in this example, we have some channels that are defined as FDMA. The system is transitioning over to TDMA, and your agency may have made some changes or need to make changes in order to finish that TDMA transition. Once again, don't make changes in this section without contacting the help desk. There is some other information in here with different features, things that you can change as well that aren't as common. So we're going to move on to the trunking personality. So trunking personality defines how a channel or a talk group correctly, or a set of talk groups interacts with the system and what the different behaviors are for this. So let's take an example here. I'm going to go into this personality, which is called North. You can name these personalities something that's helpful to you so you can reference them later, which is important, which I'll go over. In the trunking personality, You're going to be asked to assign it to a system. Most people have one trunking system in the state of Alaska, but if you have multiple, you may have to assign it to a certain system. There's going to be some information in here that you may need to define, but the most important thing for an agency is coming down here to the talk groups section. The talk groups that you wish to access will need to be defined in your trunking personality. So before you assign zones and channels, which we'll talk about next, you must define those talk groups to be available in your zone and channel assignment and zone and channel configuration screens here in the personality section before you move into that step. So in this example, we have 6 different talk groups here. What you're going to see here is the talk group name, talk group ID, and then some other options in here. For most folks, what you're really going to be worried about are these top 2 fields. The talk group ID, so for talk group systems, talk groups that are owned by your agencies on the system, you'll have the talk group ID when you set that up from the ALMR help desk. If you need to add any of the talk group IDs for another agency, those will be shown on the talk group sharing agreement that you executed with that agency and the ALMR system. So make sure you reference those documents. Remember that if you have another agency talk groups in your radio that are not owned by your agency and they are not general use interoperable frequencies, you must have a talk group sharing agreement on file with ALMR to comply with FCC regulations and ALMR membership requirements. Those documents will show you those talk group IDs, and the ALMR help desk can provide you with the talk group IDs for the interoperable fields as well. So we have, again, a decimal and a hexadecimal value. We'll just talk about decimal here. In this example, our talk group ID is 41621, and we have called it North Call. Remember, in talk group name, it would be good best practice to put the talk group name the way it is listed in the system, the way that you set it up. However, you can put the talk group name in here with any particular name that you wish. So do keep that in mind, but when troubleshooting, if you have a different name than what's shown in the system, it can cause some different issues or confusion there. So we recommend putting in the name as it's shown on the system. In this case, North Call, we have our talk group ID. And then we have these 5 other talk groups as well. As we scroll down here in this particular personality, there aren't too many features here to point out. I am going to point out the section here at the end of the personality, which is called Preferred Sites. There is the ability for users to put preferred sites into the trunking personalities, and what this means is that the system will automatically try and lock into a particular type of site or a particular site itself that the user may define. So for instance, you may say that if you work in a specific area and there is one ALMR site that functions better for you, you may think it may be good to put in that preferred site information. Putting in preferred sites is one of the most common causes of problems and the most common causes of not being able to transmit. The system automatically will select the best site for you depending on where you are at the time. In other words, the radio constantly searches for different sites and uses RSSI, which is the received signal strength indication, to measure how good or how strong that site signal is. For example, if you can see 3 different sites, the system will automatically go to the strongest site and attempt to find a channel for you to transmit on. If for some reason that site is busy, it will go to the next best site, and so on. So we do not recommend using the preferred site function at any time. Now that we've defined our trunking personality, and again, you can define many different trunking personalities from many different types of things, let's go now to the zone channel assignment feature. Zone channel assignment is where you are going to be able to define how your different zones, how your different layouts are within the radio. In this example, I'm going to go to Zone 2, and we can name Zone 2 a different label, so we've named it North here. So the zone name is North, and you can see here that we have defined the different talk groups already. What's important here is that when you are looking for a specific talk group, you put those in the correct position and you just select the correct channel. To select the channel, come over to the trunking talk group, and you're going to notice this is now a drop-down menu. If I left click on this, I will see several different options, but these channels, these talk group names, match the options that we had defined in the North trunking personality. And this is where, when I say you must define those correct channels for the correct personality, are going to be in here. So North call, North command 2, North command 3, and you can define the channel name. The channel name does not generally define by default. You can change it. Again, we recommend as a good best practice to keep the talk group name, channel name, as it is in the system, so everybody is talking about the same thing. A couple things to point out when you're looking at a particular zone or channel assignment. There may be times where you don't want to have everything in the same personality. Can you use different personalities? The answer to that is yes. It's very common for most agencies in their first zone where they may have several different personalities with several different types of, or sources of talk groups. So for instance, if I change this to central, channel 2, position 2, is now looking at the central personality. If I go down the drop-down menu, you're going to see that now I don't have my north channels anymore. Now I have my central channels. So again, you can mix personalities in this zone and channel assignment. You may also mix conventional and trunking. So you'll notice here in channel type, these have all been set as TRK or trunking. If you click the drop-down menu, you may also click conventional. So if we come down here to this on position 8, we're going to see that this NSAR VSAR 16 channel is a conventional channel. And this is pulled up in exactly the same way. You're first going to define your personality, in this case our conventional personality. Again, very similar to a trunking personality, you're going to do that up here in your conventional configuration section instead of your trunking configuration section. Instead of being able to select a trunking talk group, which we're not able to do, if we come to the next column, which is conventional frequency, we're going to see all of the conventional frequencies that are loaded in our talk group. So that is going to give you the information in there to be able to pull that up. So remember, when you are defining zone and channel assignments, make sure that you are aware you can mix personalities, you can mix trunking and conventional, depending upon the use case that you have. The interoperable zones, which is the north, central, and southeast zone, which is what we're working on right now, all three of those have a mix of trunking and conventional based on the ALMR interoperability plan. Your zone 1, in other words, usually most agencies' home zone, may have trunking talk groups, but you may also have conventional. And remember that conventional talk groups, conventional channels, typically are simplex channels, tactical channels, or other radio-to-radio channels where you don't necessarily need to use the trunking system, but might be used for on-scene communications. In this example, for our interoperable talk groups, these are national interoperability channels that are available on all radios that can be used for a major emergency or for other functions. These are the main functions that I want to point out to you. But there's a couple other things just about this software before we close out. It's important to understand how certain fields work with other things within the software. Earlier we saw some red fields, and I mentioned that you may have to make other changes in your code plug in order to make those particular functions work. The code plug will not allow you to save or move on if you have invalid functions. So let's look at an example. I'm going to come back here to the trunking personalities. And if you'll notice here, I can go into any one of these personalities like I have been. For example, going back into the north personality, and that will let me edit that. However, if I go to the top level of the tree, it's going to give me a list here on the right-hand side of all of these different personalities that we have loaded. So to show you an example, let's say that I decide that we don't need the north personality any longer. If I right-click on that, I can click delete. And do note that it is not asking you a confirmation question. So again, be very careful in some of the functions that you have when you're working through this software. Now, if we come down here, and your software may pop this up, but if not, click this. Notice where it says invalid fields report, and we have the number 6. So what this is telling us is we have 6 errors in our code plug where information in certain fields is now not valid, and it won't let us move on to that. So if we click on one of these things, and what we can see here is at this particular location, our zone channel assignment, we have an error in the channel assignment list. It's telling us which field it is. It's the personality, and our value, which is null, which means it's blank. If we double click on this error, it will take us to the correct part of the software. And notice now we've come back into our zone channel assignment. And what this is telling us is everything that was referencing that north personality that I just deleted, this is now invalid. There's no personality for these channels. So it's telling me to either select another personality or I need to change the way this layout is. It will not let you write to your radio with these red errors in it. So keep an eye down here on the invalid fields report and make sure as you're making changes that you're not seeing any invalid field errors. This is a very quick overview of some of the most common features that agency radio programmers use. Once again, the ALMR Help Desk can help provide you with any information that you may be looking for, such as your talk group IDs, or help you with your talk group sharing agreements. But keep in mind that the system itself does not provide radio programming services. We highly advise that you take the appropriate manufacturer training or have an appropriate radio dealer or other in-house expert deal with radio programming, as it is very easy to make mistakes and see different things happening which may cause your communications to be disrupted. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact the ALMR Help Desk or the ALMR Operations Management Office for assistance.